There are hundreds and hundreds of AI tools out there right now, every single one of them claiming to revolutionize your ad creative production. There are new tools launching pretty much every single week. Everyone on Twitter and LinkedIn, they're posting about the new latest tool. It's completely overwhelming, but honestly, most of these tools are just noise. And the reality is that 90% of these tools are either not ready for professional use, or they are designed to solve problems that you don't actually have. I have tested dozens and dozens of these tools. I use AI every single day in my workflows to help businesses produce hundreds of ads on a monthly basis. And I can tell you with complete certainty, with the utmost confidence, that most of what is out there right now is a distraction. So in today's video, I am going to rank every single AI tool that actually matters for ad creative production. We're going to start at the bottom, which is going to be D tier, and we're going to work our way up to the S tier. Now, this is not based on what looks cool in a demo or a nice product explainer release video that the company have produced and put on Twitter, or just what's working across social platforms. This is based on what I actually use myself, what actually works, and what is genuinely going to help you produce better ads at scale. So with that being said, let's get into the video. Okay, so first things first, getting started with the D tier. The first tool that we have here is Perplexity, starting at the bottom. Now, personally, I am just not a fan of Perplexity, and I feel as if, honestly, it's actually regressed and gotten worse over time. The original premise and kind of promise of Perplexity was quite interesting. Obviously, this is like an AI search engine that is going to be pulling live data from sources and synthesizes that data into useful answers. Now, for research purposes, this could be quite valuable, but for building creative briefs and analyzing competitors and understanding market trends, I'm not really sure from an in-practice perspective. I just don't really see the reach for it. From my perspective, from my usage and the times I've tried using Perplexity, the outputs just genuinely aren't as useful or going directly to Gemini or Claude, or even just searching directly on Google itself. Now, the research capabilities are effective, I will give it that. However, from my experience and just personally, they don't integrate very well into our workflows. And for the specific kind of tasks that we need to do from an ad creative production perspective, I've just always found to be a better tool. There's so many other tools out there, whether it is ChatGPT's deep research, notably, and recently, Notebook LM by Google. I've just found them so much more effective. Now, maybe there is a use case where Perplexity is the best, but right now, I just haven't found it. And for ad creative work, in my opinion, it just doesn't make the cut. So then moving on up to C tier, the first tool that we have here is Sora. Now, Sora is OpenAI's video generation tool. And yeah, I'll be honest, it's a decent tool. With the Sora 3 update most recently, you are able to start rendering more complex motion and a lot more complex than you could do before. The quality ceiling, in my opinion, is quite high. It's one of these things when Sora does work, the output can be very impressive. But the biggest issue that I have with Sora is the consistency. You are going to inevitably encounter distortion. You're going to encounter these weird artifacts and errors within the motion that make the video unusable. Let's say, for example, you generate 5 videos. You might have 1 or 2 of these that are actually usable. But I will say that if you know how to prompt well and you're quite patient with the back and forth and with the iteration, you can get some good results with Sora, but it just takes work. Now, the other limitation with Sora is that you can only generate videos from uploaded images, and right now you can't generate videos from real people. So if you want to create UGC style content where you would like a human talking to the camera, Sora AI isn't the best tool for this. Now, OpenAI have suggested that the capability for this is coming, but it's not there at the moment. So for that reason, I'm going to mark it as C tier. It does have potential, but for reliable ad production, there are so many better options right now. So then next up, we have Midjourney. So with regards to Midjourney, I will be honest, I don't really use it that much personally for ad creative work. I do know some people and some creative-minded designers and strategists that love it. From an artistic perspective, the quality of the images is genuinely impressive, and for certain use cases, whether it's brand imagery or creative concepts or more artistic visuals, then yeah, it probably is one of the best options. But for ad creative specifically, where what matters is direct response principles and not just looking nice and aesthetic, I just haven't found it to be as useful as other tools. As well as that, I find the workflow very clunky. Obviously, living inside a Discord, the outputs, they look very, very nice and aesthetic, but they require so much editing to actually work in ad formats. And for product-focused imagery, which is obviously a lot of what we do, tools like Nano Banana are so much more practical. Now, maybe I'm just underrating this because, as I said, I have heard great things from other people in the creative space. But again, I can only base this on my personal usage and what fits into our workflows. And for that reason, it sits in the C tier. So then next up, we have HeyGen. Now, HeyGen is very intuitive and it's very easy to use to generate AI avatar videos. If you've never, ever used an AI UGC tool before, then HeyGen is probably your best bet and the easiest one to get started with. You can sign up, you pick an avatar, you paste your script, and then you just simply click generate. It's very, very simple. The interface is clean. The onboarding process to get started is very straightforward. In my opinion, the problem is that once you've used other tools, and specifically ArcAds, which I will get into shortly, you realize what you are missing when you use HeyGen. The avatars aren't actually as realistic. There isn't as much variety and selection. The lip sync just isn't quite as good. The kind of subtle micro expressions, these small nuanced details that makes a face feel more human, these are less present within the HeyGen AI avatars. Now, it's fine. It does work quite well. It's okay. It's competent. And if you just need to quickly test a concept and you don't want to spend time learning a new platform, then HeyGen will get you there. But of course, if you are more serious and you're trying to invest heavily into AI UGC and you're going to be producing this content at scale, then I would personally invest the time into other tools, which I will come on to. So C tier, it's usable, but there are better options. And speaking of which, let's move into the B tier. So first up on the B tier, we have Na10. Now, Na10 is a very solid workflow automation tool. It's more powerful than alternatives like GumLoop for more complex and technical builds. If you want to do something really, really sophisticated with complex logic and multiple conditional branches, more deep integrations with obscure APIs, Na10 is really good for handling these sort of things. But the issue I have with Na10 is that the power comes with the complexity. It feels like it was built for developers. It feels like it was built for more technically minded people. The interface is more technical. The learning curve is steeper. And if you're just a creative person that wants to build some simple automations to automate some ad production workflows, it is quite intimidating. Now, I use Na10 and a couple of other options. When I need something really custom and complex, I will build it inside of Na10. For everything else, I go to other options because they are faster, easier, and just more intuitive. So really, if you are technical, you might actually prefer Na10. It is more flexible, but for most teams that are more creative-minded, there are better options. So for that reason, B tier, it's a solid tool, just not my first recommendation for most creative teams. So then next up, we have Google's Veo 3. In my opinion, the most promising tool from a pure native video generation perspective. Now, when I say video generation natively, what I mean by this is just generating video content from scratch, not UGC with avatars, but actual raw video footage. So think of scenes, motion, environments. Now, the use case I found most effective for ads is actually creating hooks with Veo 3 that are intentionally unrealistic. Things that are obviously AI, but still scroll stopping at the same time because of how visually strange they are or attention grabbing they are. You are not using Veo 3 at this stage anyway to try and fool someone into thinking it's real footage. You're just using the uncanny, surreal quality as an actual feature, which can work really, really well with opening hooks. 3 seconds of something visually bizarre that stops the scroll, and then you transition into your actual ad content is really, really effective. And also, Veo 3 is improving very quickly. Google is clearly investing very heavily here, but at the same time, it is still quite inconsistent. You will get great, incredible results sometimes, and then unusable outputs for other times. If you want something reliable, if you need production-ready content, it's not quite there yet, which is why I'm putting it in B tier, but it has so much potential, and with a couple of tweaks and in a few months' time, this might be an A tier or even S tier tool. So then we have Nano Banana. Now, Nano Banana is very, very good specifically for ecom brands, especially for those that are focused on product placement in their static ads. So if you are selling a physical product, DTC, ecom, whatever it may be, and you need images of that specific product in different contexts, whether it's a lifestyle shot with different backgrounds or different scenarios, then Nano Banana handles this really, really well. What I've personally found is that the iterative prompting works better than other image generation tools. So what I mean by that is that with a lot of AI image tools, you generate something, it's not quite right, so you try and iterate it, you tweak the prompt and you go back and forth and generate again. But often, the more you try and go back and forth and iterate, the further you actually drift from your original objective, and the AI basically loses that context and the thread. With Nano Banana, however, I've found that it holds that original objective and context better. You can iterate and go back and forth multiple times, and it will still remember what you were originally trying to achieve. So for product placement specifically, where you need the product to look consistent while changing the environment around it, that does matter a lot. So I'm ranking Nano Banana in B tier, really, really strong for its specific use case, but that use case is probably narrower than some of the other tools on the list, which is why it's only ranked in B tier. Then we have ChatGPT. So the thing with ChatGPT is I still personally use it every single day. In fact, I'd probably say I use it more than any other tool on this list in terms of just raw usage and frequency, but I use it for very specific things. Quick questions, any generic tasks. If I need a fast answer to something without needing deep research or any nuanced output, then I will go to ChatGPT. If I'm having a conversation with my girlfriend or my family and they've asked me a question, I don't know the answer, I'm going to quickly open my phone and go to ChatGPT. It's very quick, it's convenient, and for anything that is quite surface level, then I would say it is fine. Now, the problem is that for anything complex, especially anything copywriting related, it's become less and less usable over the past year. And I know that sounds quite counterintuitive because OpenAI keeps releasing a lot of updates and everyone keeps talking about how capable it's becoming and how quickly it's developing. But what I've experienced is that the recent updates since the 4.0 model towards ChatGPT 5 and 5.1 recently have actually made it worse, and especially for detailed creative work. When you try and provide it with in-depth, detailed context, whether that's brand guidelines or customer research, maybe you provide some examples of winning ads, ChatGPT just doesn't seem to process it the same way that other LLMs do. It skims over the context, it then gives you generic output that could really apply to any brand. And for ad copywriting and ad creative processes specifically, I just can't really rely on it anymore. The output is too safe, it's too bland, and it's just too AI sounding. You know, that very generic ChatGPT voice that everyone recognizes now, the kind of, it's not X, it's Y. That's still what you get. So it is useful for some things where the specific details of the output aren't important, but for anything complex, I wouldn't recommend it. As I said, I still do use it consistently for quick tasks, but for the core work of producing ad creative, it really isn't that effective, which is why I put it in B tier. So then, okay, now we're getting into the good stuff. Then we have the A tier. So the first tool on the A tier is Poppy. Now, Poppy is one of the best workflow tools, in my opinion, specifically built for creative production, which of course then becomes effective for ad creative production. Now, the reason I separate Poppy from NA10 or even something like GumLoop is just because Poppy is purpose-built for content and creative workflows. It's not a general automation tool. It is designed specifically for teams like us and exactly for what we do. Now, for example, the use case that I find most valuable inside of Poppy is reverse engineering competitor ads. So you can take and upload a bunch of winning ads, whether static or video, from a competitor's ad library or from Motion or Foreplay, drop that into Poppy, along with your brand context loaded and some details on what makes an effective static or video ad, and it will deconstruct that ad and rebuild it fully aligned with your brand. So you get the same structure, the same psychological triggers, and the same hook format, but applied to your unique tone of voice, your messaging, your offer, and just everything about your brand. This is incredibly powerful. It's a very, very effective use case. We use this a lot, and it works so well just because it removes the guesswork at what actually is effective. You're taking proven winners that other brands have invested budget into and just essentially adapting them into ads for your own brand. And really, This is the most effective workflow that we've built to be able to shortcut the testing process because, like I said, you are just leveraging your competitors' spend. Now, with Poppy, you can also do other things like building content calendars. You can manage and build variations. You can track easily what you have produced. It really just is a full workspace for creative production rather than just a standard automation tool. So if your workflow is specifically focused on ad creative, which is obviously what we're talking about in this video, then Poppy is going to be very, very effective for you, which is why I have ranked it in the A tier. So then next we have ArcAds. Now ArcAds, in my opinion, is the best AI UGC platform out there. If you are not familiar, obviously UGC being user-generated content, where we have someone that looks like a real person talking to the camera about a product. It feels native, it feels authentic, and it's more like a recommendation from a friend rather than just a polished video ad. Obviously, this format crushes on Meta, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, but traditionally, you'd hire creators to film this content, which is very expensive. It takes a long time to produce, and you have no idea after all of that time and resource invested if the concept, the angle, the script, the creator is actually going to work until you've gone through that entire lengthy process. Now, the benefit with AI UGC and tools like ArcAds is that they let you generate this content with AI avatars. So you write the script, you select an avatar, it generates a video of the avatar delivering your script. Now, I've tested ArcAds extensively against HeyGen, against Sora, against VO3, against basically all of the alternatives. And for AI UGC avatars, ArcAds wins by a mile. It wins because the avatars themselves are more realistic. There is a lot more variety and selection so that you can find personalities and faces that actually match your brand, but also they have really strong templates that make it very easy for you to produce different styles of content. Now, just to make it very clear, AI UGC, in my opinion, is not a replacement at this stage for real creators in every case. The technology, in my opinion, isn't quite there yet to the point where it's completely indistinguishable from real humans, but it is absolutely good enough for testing. So you can use AI UGC avatars to validate scripts, to validate hooks and angles, and then skip that lengthy investment process. So you can use this to find what works. And then when you find winning angles, then you invest the time and budget into real creators for proven winners. Now, this workflow alone, even just by using this, will save you so much time, thousands of dollars in wasted ad spend and creator spend on concepts that were just never going to work anyway, which is why I rank ArcAds in A tier for UGC style video production. Then next up, we have Gemini. So Gemini is a really, really strong all-round LLM that I also use every single day. The 2.5 model is really impressive, and obviously recently the Gemini 3 model is even better. The analysis capabilities, in my opinion, set this apart from other LLMs and actually make it the best at doing so. The feature that I find most impressive for ad creative is specifically the fact that Gemini can analyze videos directly. You don't need to download the transcript of a video. You can literally paste a link to a YouTube video or just upload an MP4 video file, and Gemini will watch that video and actually break it down frame by frame. So it will tell you what is happening in each scene. It will tell you what hooks are being used, what psychological triggers are being deployed, what the pacing looks like, which of course is incredibly powerful for when you are doing competitor analysis. So you can just find a competitor that's been running a video ad for 60 days plus, which means it's probably working, of course, upload that to Gemini and ask Gemini to extract every element that makes it effective. Then you take those insights, apply them to your own creative and run those ads. And today, as of recording, no other LLM has this ability. ChatGPT can analyze video transcripts, other platforms can as well, but the depth isn't there like Gemini. Gemini genuinely watches and understands visually what is actually happening. The only slight downside I've noticed with Gemini is that sometimes the outputs can be quite wordy. Sometimes you ask a simple question and you get 8 paragraphs back when you just needed 1 or 2 sentences. The outputs do often need trimming. It's not as tight as Claude, for example, for copywriting, but for research, for analysis, and for breaking down what's working in video content, Gemini is essential. So then that wraps up D, C, B, and A tier. Now let's get into the S tier tools. And first of all, we have ElevenLabs. Now, ElevenLabs is by far the best text-to-speech tool on the market right now by a mile, especially after some of the most recent updates. There's not a ton of depth to go into here with ElevenLabs just because it does one thing, but it does that one thing extremely well. You go ahead and you paste in text and you get realistic human sounding voiceovers. That's all it does, but it is so effective, and it matters so much for ad creative, because if you're producing video ads at scale, whether that's UGC style content, whether that's explainer videos or product demos, you need voiceovers. And obviously traditionally you'd have to record them yourself, or you'd hire a voice actor, or use some robotic sounding text to speech that just immediately makes your ad feel cheap and badly produced. With ElevenLabs, they have to solve this. The voices actually sound natural. They have emotion, they have pacing, they have realistic breathing patterns. Most AI generated ads that you see nowadays are using ElevenLabs for the voiceover. And for a lot of them, you probably can't tell. Of course, for some, you can, but for the cost, which is basically nothing compared to hiring voice talent off of Upwork or Fiverr, you can literally generate unlimited variations of voiceovers. You can test different tones, you can test different pacing, different energy levels, you can see what resonates best with your different audiences or different markets. Then, of course, again, just like the AI content with the AI concept with the UGC, once you find a winning script, you can always go back and have someone professionally record it if you really want. Of course, very simple tool, only does one thing, but it does it very well, better than any other tools, and it is essential for video ad production at scale, which is why I rank it in the S tier. So then next we have GumLoop. Now, GumLoop is my personal preferred workflow builder for anything related to ad creative automation. Now, if you're not familiar with these workflow builders, just like I outlined with NA10, these are just tools that let you connect different apps and different AI tools together so you can automate the processes. So rather than manually doing the same task over and over again, you build this workflow run once and it runs automatically. So yeah, GumLoop really does kind of do the same thing as NA10, like I spoke about earlier, but I just personally prefer GumLoop, and I find it way less intimidating. The UI is cleaner, it's more visual, and it just feels like it was designed more in the use case of creative people rather than developers and technically minded people. So specifically, to give you an example, I have a workflow right now in GumLoop where I will just paste a competitor's ad into the system. It will automatically extract the hook, it will extract the offer, the structure of the entire ad, the CTA, the psychological triggers. Then it feeds all of that into Claude or Gemini or whichever LLM I choose, aligned with my brand's context or a client's brand, and it will generate for me new variations that are fully aligned with that context. So that whole process from start to finish literally takes around 60 to 90 seconds for it to process. And of course, manually, that would take me like 30 to 45 minutes for every single ad. So when you are producing hundreds, if not thousands of ads per month, the time saving obviously compounds massively. And if you're a marketing team or a business and you want to start automating your creative production, then I would definitely tell you to start with GumLoop, because the learning curve really isn't that steep and you can just build some genuinely useful workflows, honestly, within a few hours of learning the platform, which is why I rank GumLoop as an S tier for creative teams. So then finally, we have Claude. At the top, we definitely have Claude. In my opinion, it's the best AI tool out there right now. And yeah, I don't say that lightly. And of course, recently with the most recent update, Opus 4.5, and the new skills feature they released a couple of weeks, if not a few months back, it's pulled ahead of everything else. Now, I use Claude every single day for literally everything, but especially for copywriting. So for ad copy, for scripts, for hooks, for landing page copy, for email sequences, basically everything that involves words. So here's what makes Claude different in my opinion. So when you're writing ad copy, you need the AI to actually understand your brand voice and maintain it across hundreds of variations. ChatGPT can't do this well. It gives you that really generic output, like I said, that sounds like AI or just any other brand. But Claude actually reads the context that you give it, and it maintains that consistency. I have tons and tons of Claude projects set up. I have one for each of our clients. I have one for our own business for different use cases. Each of these loaded with different brand guidelines, documentation containing tone of voice, examples of winning ads, sales call transcripts, customer language from reviews, so that when I go to generate copy, Claude is just pulling from all of that context, and the output is actually usable immediately. I'd say probably 75 to 80% of the time without any iterations. Compare that to ChatGPT and you'd be lucky to get maybe 20 to 30% usable output. Now, I'm also integrating Claude heavily into automation workflows, like I outlined with both NA10 and GumLoop, using their API and direct integration so I can start building these more complex systems where, for example, a competitor ad will get automatically scraped, fed into Claude with these brand context guidelines, and just variations will be automatically generated. It's so powerful, very effective tool, obviously, when you learn how to use it properly. The skills feature is also massive, so you can now give Claude specific capabilities, and it will remember those across all conversations. So for ad creative, this is incredibly useful. So if you take one thing from this video, be it this: if you are not using Claude for your ad copywriting, you are wasting so much money, so much budget. Claude is an absolute S-tier tool, and in my opinion, the #1 AI tool overall. So that right there is my ranking of every AI tool that in my opinion actually matters for ad creative in 2025. So for a quick recap, my D tier, I would rank Perplexity, and to be honest, I would just advise that you skip using it. Then we have Sora, Midjourney, and HeyGen in the C tier, which are all usable tools, but in my opinion, there are much better options. In the B tier, we have N8N, VO3, Nano, Banana, and ChatGPT, which are all solid tools but come with limitations. My A tier is Poppy, Arcads, and Gemini, which are all extremely useful for specific individual parts of your workflow. And then the S tier tools are ElevenLabs, GumLoop, and Claude. These are the 3 essentials that I use pretty much daily. Now, knowing which tools to use ultimately is one thing, but knowing how to use them together as a system to actually produce hundreds of ads really is where the leverage comes. Now, I have another video breaking down our full workflow, how these tools connect together, and I will link it in the description below. If you are running a business and spending over $25,000 or more every single month on your paid ads, and you would like to learn how we can train you and your team directly on implementing all of this, watch that video, and then you can click on the link below to book a call and speak with our team. With that being said, I hope you found this valuable, and I'll see you in the next one.